Hello, everyone. Good day. Can we all hear me? Hello, everyone. Can we all hear me? Good day.
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome to the closing ceremony. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We're happy to have all of you join in for both mentees and mentors alike on this session. It's a real privilege to have everybody on call right now. Thank you so much to the mentees for joining in. Welcome to our closing ceremony for the first and second quarter of the Jiipcc Mentorship and Internship Program for 2025. Welcome to our guest keynote speaker, Mr. Clements. Thank you so much. We are happy to have you on call. All right, so we'll be doing well to first start by introducing or welcoming all our mentors and, like I said, the mentees on call. So the mentees that are currently on session, please, would like for you to reach out to your other co-mentees so that we can have more people join in for the session. We expect to have a very full session as it's going to be very impactful and going to be very knowledge filled. So not to waste any further time, I would like to just kindly call on Mr. Joseph Obo to give us an introduction to the keynote speaker. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. We're also happy to have you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis. It's so good to see you again. And I want to welcome everyone. Trust me, you guys are in for one of the very best keynote speeches that you would ever hear in a very long time. And the reason being that today we are having Dr. Clement Oko. Dr. Clem has been a personal mentor of mine. I can almost call him a father to a very large extent, and he has guided me through a lot of very tough decisions in life. I'll just quickly go through, I wouldn't be able to read everything on his profile. In fact, we had almost like 5 pages of his profile, but we had to condense it as much as possible into bits that we might be able to read through. So the profile is on the screen. You can just go through while I pick out very few aspects of it for us to share before we invite Dr. Clement to proceed with his keynote address. Dr. Clement Oko was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, one of the most naturally metastatic of cancers in 2017, while in Nigeria, preparing to launch the projects listed below. He beat the odds against cancer with 7 potentially fatal complications and a life expectancy of 4 years, and is now in complete remission. In 2019, he authored a best-selling memoir on his cancer odyssey titled Osondu, Igbo language proverb, "One never tires of the race for life." At the request of John Hopkins, he blogged his inspiring story on the world-famous teaching hospital's social media website, Cancer Matters. Dr. Clement Oko has extensive corporate and project management experience. He offers technical, financial, and personnel management skills in areas as diverse as high technology, advanced energy systems, heavy civil and construction, sensor/treatment method, R&D, solid waste facilities. The list goes on and on and on. His expertise includes sophisticated methods for planning, implementation, operations, and general management. Dr. Clement Oko also founded Ogiso in California, USA, 1989. I can tell that many of us were not born then, and guided its profitable growth to a multi-million-dollar organization, providing engineering, technology, management, environmental, consulting, and remediation, heavy civil and construction services to public and private clients. He holds a PhD, Mechanical Engineering, UC Berkeley, 1984, the year of my birth, BSE, Princeton University, New Jersey, 1979. Engineering, Physics, Mechanical, and Aerospace Engineering, United World College, Atlantic College, 1975, King's College, Lagos. So I don't want to say so much more. I would like to invite us to one of the most inspiring keynotes that you would hear, and I want to encourage all of us. Don't listen to this for the speech content. Listen to it with a mindset of the fact that there would be certain things that you would hear today that could form the foundation for greater things in your future as a young person, as a young professional, knowing that Nigeria is not just your playing field, but the world has become your global stage. So with a clap in the comment section, please make welcome Dr. Clement Oko. Dr. Clement, you're welcome to take the floor. Thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, you're sharing. I need to share to do a presentation. Who's the host?
Mr. Dennis and Sophie.
Okay, I need to, could you allow me to share so I can?
Okay.
Okay, it says the host isn't allowing multiple presenters to share, so let me share.
All right, sorry, sir, about that. Please, if it's possible, can you share from your end, sir?
That's what I'm, okay, now it's possible. Okay, good. Okay. So congratulations to everyone for completing your mentorship and internship program. You guys are the future of the continent, and to that extent, I'd like to issue a call to action to you to dare to make a difference, because really that's all the hope we have left on the continent. So congratulations, and let me discuss a few things that should be of interest to you. The title of this presentation is Dare to Make a Difference, and it's a call to action to everybody here, which this is not moving. Hang on, let me go back to my, okay, good. It's a call to action to dare to make a difference. And in this presentation, we're going to have summary here. It's introduction, then we'll talk about preparation, learning to do what you need to do. Then we'll talk about execution, which is where we tend to be a little, well, we're actually pretty weak in preparations. And then we'll talk about two examples so you can see the various aspects of what I'm discussing. And then we'll summarize to pull it all in. First thing is we have to learn to make a difference. Don't just jump in and prepare. You have to learn, then you have to do it. And so you learn to prepare, learn to execute. And while you're doing this, you have to pay it forward. Show gratitude, and you also have to help pull other people up. It's not just the money you're going to make, but also the impact you'll make. And that's actually some of the most important things. And when it comes to the next step, which is to actually do it, you actually have to dare, you have to be bold enough to step out and do it. In your generation, you don't really have much of a choice because things are in such bad shape. You don't have a choice but to step out. So you've got to dare to prepare. You can't just go, well, I have to be able to call people and I have to be able to study. You actually have to do it. And then you have to dare to execute and fail. Because you are going to do. Nobody's perfect all the time. Like very few people are perfect in a significant portion of the time. And instead of looking at it as failure, in Silicon Valley, people talk about fail fast. Meaning don't spend all the time trying to get the first try perfect. Because the earlier you find out what's not going correctly, the earlier you can fix it. So don't be afraid of not succeeding, failing. And then again, while you're making a difference and you're doing these things, and show gratitude. Don't take anything or anyone for granted. And always step back and pull people along. Right now, you're a mentee. Later on, you'll be a mentor. You might be a mentor to people who are older than you, people who are younger, people your age. Doesn't make a difference. It's the experience you bring with you that makes a difference. Okay. A bit more detail here. And when you're learning to make a difference, you gotta learn how to dream. Don't get trapped in your current circumstances. Don't let the fact that you're having difficulty getting your first meal of the day, or if you're down to eating every other day, don't let that trap you into feeling despondent or into limiting what you can do. Okay? Dream. Just doesn't cost anything for your mind to go out there and imagine things. And that's where we're going to make a difference in the country. You have to learn to work hard, which I don't have to teach Nigerians. Most Nigerians are working very hard. But there's a difference between working hard and being diligent. You have to learn to do the right thing and do it properly. And then people tend to think, if I bring somebody along, I will have to share money. They won't know how to do it like me. Well, you might be the best outside right, but you'll probably be a lousy number 5. You'll probably be a lousy goalkeeper. So you need a team. Okay, and the project's only going to be as good as your team. You've got to learn to team with colleagues and with people who can actually make more of a difference because they bring more experience, mentors. And very importantly, the next item, you've got to learn to question and find the truth. Don't just go along with what everybody thinks or what the average supposed knowledge is. You've got to question and find the truth. And that's usually what opens the door for you, anyway. And then you have to learn to find solutions. Usually, when you're questioning and finding the truth, you find solutions that other people miss, get inspiration. And again, pay it forward. And that's learning to make a difference. After that, then you have to step in and actually make a difference. You're a dancing thing. You have to gotta come up with that thing. To work hard, to actually do it. Nigerians, like I said, I don't have to preach to Nigerians by working on hardworking society. You dare to be diligent. And forget the shortcuts. Everybody already knows between themselves that those shortcuts don't always work. In fact, they hardly ever work. But sometimes they're so tempting. And then, of course, to team, one of the things that Africans are very bad at is teaming. On the continent, African Union, everybody's got their own direction. During the dot-com days in the 90s, the Indians, I used to play hockey with a bunch of Indians and Pakistanis and Europeans. And the Indians who work together come up with some engineering idea or some software idea. They go to Temple, they chip in money, and the engineer can build a prototype. And then they go to a venture capital firm, and there'll be Indians working there. When it comes time to promote it on Wall Street to go public, the Indians working Wall Street. There are also Africans, especially Nigerians, working in all these places. But when it comes to collaborating or helping each other, that just isn't their strength. That's got to change in a generation. Okay? Now, and then you have to dare to question and find the truth, because otherwise, other people will be telling your story, and it's generally not accurate. Like Europeans and so forth think Africans have no history. Never mind the fact that the people they consider to be the headwaters, the Greeks, got everything they know from Egypt. But they'll show up and tell you that Africans have no history and so forth. So forget all that stuff. You're sitting there, you know what you can do. You gotta have some confidence And you've got to develop your intuition for seeing through nonsense. Then you've got to dare to find solutions, a lot of which may be staring you in the face. So don't just go and grab a book about how they do it in Silicon Valley. Look at what you have. It might actually be better. For example, access to capital. The Isuzu system that we have throughout at least West Africa works great because it brings not only capital, not only money, it brings capital in the sense of management and connections and expertise in the field. Because the people who lend you money to do things in those systems actually have experience doing those things. And for the Igbo traders, the Waboy system is a great example of that mentorship and basically a way to pass wealth on through generations. They've figured out how to pass wealth across generations that's different from the Western system of passing it through the formal marketplace. But it's more effective because you don't get two people who are as rich as Elon Musk and then the entire country that's dead poor. But then the community stays more close, it's closer to the average in terms of wealth, but they pass that wealth down to multi-generation. So there are systems that are available to solve these problems locally. We don't have to look to Europe or the West to actually implement those solutions that we need to implement. And then, of course, there's the Muslim system, which is a risk-sharing system. In the West, we started with Milken and Company in the 80s. The guy with the money comes, and the finance bros come, and they get 80% of the company putting some money in, and they act like they're the biggest thing in town. The Muslims understand that they have to take part of that risk and share more equitably. And we're not leveraging that. Never mind the fact that the country is 50% Muslim. So those solutions, you've got to stop discounting what you have. You have to tell your own story. So daring to question and find the truth and daring to find solutions go hand in hand. Of course, gratitude always works. Okay. Let's take a couple of examples. So the first one is palm oil. We're going to compare Nigeria and Malaysia. Okay. Here's a plot that shows palm oil production, Nigeria versus Malaysia from 1964 to 2024. Malaysia is the brown, that's the one that's going up. Nigeria is the blue, that's the one that's staying closer to zero. It's actually not zero, but it's pretty small. Nigeria over here is like 1.5 million tons per year. Malaysia is closer to 20 million tons. But they started around the same place. In fact, in 64, Nigeria was producing more than Malaysia. So when you look at this map, this figure, you ask yourself, well, why did this happen? And if I were to tell you, if you wanted to get into palm oil, would you get into palm oil in Nigeria? Or would you just say, look, let me go and do something else? Because, Malaysia will beat me up. Well, before you make a decision like that, learn to prepare and dare to make a difference. And the first step is, of course, you have to get ready to work hard. But you have to go and find out what the truth is and see how we can implement solutions that work. So let's look at the next slide. This shows the growth rate oil palm production, Nigeria versus Malaysia. This time around, Malaysia is blue, that's the one on top, and Nigeria is the orange. In 1964, okay, they're both starting out, zero goes through the middle of the plot. And what you find here is initially, Malaysia jumps up, okay, between 20 and 30% and stays up between 20 and 40%. So between 1964 and 1971, Malaysia is generally looking at about 20%. somewhere between 10 and 40%. That's a growth rate. What that means is they're compounding at that high rate. They're taking off and they're growing very fast. Nigeria, on the other hand, starts out here and we have this big dip where we're almost negative 40%. If your money is compounding at minus 40%, you've got a problem. And so we bounce back up here. I'll say, okay, that's good. And then we come back down again below zero and we hang around zero. It will go up a little bit here, but then generally in this area, while Malaysia is up 20 to 40%, we're bouncing low and just bouncing around zero. So the question is, and then of course, if I take you back to the previous slide, you can see that between the 60s and 70s, that's where the separation happens. That's where they take off and they start basically compounding faster than Nigeria. The question is, what happened here where we lost it? Well, down here where Nigeria dipped fast, first of all, generally between the 60s, late 60s and 1970, Nigeria was experiencing this thing called the Civil War. Okay? And down here in 1967, at the beginning in August 67, before I say that, most of the palm oil, in fact, all the palm oil, was produced in the Midwest, which is now Edo Delta, and the East, which was Biafra back then, but is now the southeastern states, which is the Igbo heartland, Rivers State, and the South-South, essentially. That's where the palm oil was produced. Now, this big dip here happened when Biafra invaded the Midwest in 67, in August 67. Between August and about October, there was war going on in Edo Delta. There's also some war going on in Biafra. So there was an impact on production. Now, at the end of 67, the Biafran troops were cleared out of the Midwest, out of the Edo Delta. So that production came back online to some extent. Some trees were still shut up and people were still trying to get stable. But by and large, a lot of the production came back online. So you get that change in growth rate. Change in growth rate doesn't mean you got back to where you were. What it means is like 10 people were producing before the war. When the war started, 9 of them ran away. After the war, after you cleared things up, 3 of them came back. Of course, when 3 of them come back, now you have 4 versus 1. So you have this growth here, the growth rate here that Nigeria is showing. Just means you're coming off this very low point. And more people are now producing. It doesn't mean you are back to where you were. Okay. Meantime, Malaysia is not going below zero. They just fly. And then Nigeria climbs up a bit more, where things are still settling down. And then the war gets hot, where the South-South has now been taken over and Igbo land is getting squeezed. And that's where the oil palm production is. And so we have this fall, because not only are we stopping people from working, we're shooting up the trees, this war. We have this decline all the way to 1970. And guess what? That's when the war ended, January 1970. Okay? And then we've got this rise because, okay, people are now beginning to do things again, but they had no money with which to do things because the finance minister basically zeroed everybody out, everybody 20 pounds, whatever it was, regardless of how much you had. And having lost all your production facilities and all your capital equipment, whatever capital equipment you may have, all of a sudden you don't really have stuff to produce with. So the people who are producing can't produce. The young people who would go into it are now saying, well, look, I can't get into this because there's nothing to use to get into it. So they start migrating to Lagos. What happens? Well, after the war is over, all we do is we hang around zero. Now, there's a little downward slide here, even for Malaysia, and a little peak here, even for Malaysia. So that seems that's probably a weather-related thing or a general market-related thing. But by and large, for the next decade, or actually this is 1983, for the next decade, all we're doing is creeping along at near zero. What that means is we're not paying attention to the industry while these people are flying along. So lots of lessons to take from here. Number one is, if you have a civil war or a war and you come out of it, your number one job, forget the fact that you guys were trying to kill each other. Once you're done, the first thing you have to do is you have to get your production back up. That's what the US and the Europeans did after the Second World War. Now, a lot of what they did, they used African assets, which they'll never tell you. But anyway, the bottom line is, they didn't say, the Germans were trying to kill us. No, they put stuff up, built Germany back up, and that economy became one of the biggest, still is one of the biggest. Meanwhile, the Southeast used to be about 30% of Nigeria's GDP. After the war, we did nothing to resurrect it. That's one of the things we're suffering today, because essentially we killed off 30% of the GDP. And it didn't occur to us that we needed to get that thing back up as fast as possible. So it impacted not only the country as a whole, not only Edo Delta, but also neighboring nations. So the lots of lessons from here. How you end a war, which you can see what Rwanda is doing. When they're finished, they didn't do what we did. What they did was they said, okay, the war's behind us. Let's see what we can do. Okay, now let's see the other. So basically, this is where we lost it. But the question was, would you get into palm oil production? Well, let's see. Given how dominant Malaysia seems to be. Well, let's see the next one. Here are the top 5 countries, the top producing countries. Indonesia is number 1. And Indonesia is number 1 because after Malaysia got to the number 1, they started investing in Indonesia. So Malaysia now has about 24% of global production, about 19 million tons a year. Indonesia, 46 million tons a year. Those are the guys that are controlling the global market. Ironically, the reason they called the Niger Delta the oil rivers back at the end of the 19th century was because palm oil used to get traded from there to Europe, Britain in particular, to fuel the Industrial Revolution, for greasing the machines, for powering things, and so forth, and then for manufacturing, which is very ironic. And the oil seedlings that were introduced into Malaysia were introduced by the British earlier in the 20th century from West Africa. Okay, but we've gone to sleep. They have stayed awake. They own the global market. Okay, but so here's Nigeria here at 2% and 1.5 million tons a year. Well, question is still, would you get into it? Well, Nigeria consumes 1.9 million metric tons, but producing 1.5. Well, that looks like we're importing a lot. First of all, our importation, we're pretty bad at tracking things anyway. This doesn't include all the palm oil that's hidden in beauty supplies and food that we import as processed. So our consumption is it's probably way over 2.5 million tons. But that's not necessarily just the consumption. There's also demand that's hidden. Because if the palm oil is not there to make soap, then you're not making the soap with palm oil. That doesn't mean you can't make soap with palm oil, or that you can't make beauty products with palm oil. It's just you're not growing you're not producing, you're not growing the oil palm or making the palm oil to do it. And Indonesia and Malaysia, a lot of their production is used in biodiesel. So here it is, we're complaining about diesel being very expensive, but we're not growing palm oil that we can eat and use to drive machines. So if you were to make a decision about whether to get into the palm oil business at home, that plot, Malaysia being way up top, should not be discouraging whatsoever, because there's a huge market. The stuff is local. We have the skills to produce. We can make production much better. The Malaysians produce about 7 tons a hectare, and the global market price is about $1,000 a ton. So if you're a small company with 10 hectares, you could be making $70,000, which goes quite a bit, quite a ways. You know, if you've got, and then of course, if you're a firm of any size, if I were running Dangote's company, I'd absolutely be farming oil palm in Kogi State, no doubt in my mind. And also producing plantain, but that's a different story. Bottom line is, when you're looking to ask to do something, ask the questions, be ready to work hard, find the truth, make a decision, form your team, go at it. Okay, now let's take the next example. Next example, example number 2, moral clarity and wealth creation. Moral clarity being clarity about the moral values that guide your actions. Okay, now a lot of people think wealth creation, I'll just do whatever it takes to grab that money. Well, what I'm suggesting is you've got to have moral clarity in any approach you have to wealth creation. And as an example, let's take something many people don't pay attention to, again, because when it comes to Africa, other people are telling our story. And it never occurs to us that we have to tell our own story, because we're so colonized when we talk. Even right now, we're speaking English to each other, which is hardly a language. But let's look at what a study put out on GDP of various areas of the world as a percentage of world GDP. You've got the US. The US is a dark blue. That's the one that's on top right now. And it starts close to 0, takes off just after 1700 through the 1800s, peaks around the Second World War, and comes down. But it's still on top. Western Europe is a light blue. Starts out here as a dip. Okay, that's probably plague time. Then goes up steeply to about almost to 20%, cuts across 20. Then there's another sharp increase here in the 1800s. Peaks. And around here is where people were scrambling for Africa. And over here, we've got the First World War over here, the Second World War over here. And now, and don't forget, the GDP is increasing, but this is as a fraction of global. So when America is going up, the fraction of global that Europe has is coming down. Well, the other 2 interesting ones are China and India. China and India were way ahead of everybody. Yes, China as India in orange, is China in red. So to start with, they were by far the highest. But then there's this steep decline for India. In the case of China, there's an even steeper decline. And now they're beginning to rise again. And the Middle East. Now, what's conspicuously absent from here, people who, I guess, don't exist and who don't have a history. People called Africans. Africa is not here. And South Americans, that's, South Americans as in before colonialism, people who were there before the Europeans got there. And even right now, they're not on this map. And that's critical to the discussion that's about to happen. So let's, as Nigerians would say, let's touch light to the issue. Let's shine a light on those steep increases and steep decreases and ask ourselves, what was going on? Well, over here in the 1,000 to 1,500, especially over here, around 1,500, we all know what was going on. Okay, this is where people started their voyages of quote-unquote discovery, where they come to your village and they discover your father's house. They come to your village and they discover the stream in the backyard, and Mango Park will say, I discovered the Niger. And they'll grab everything they can find and cart it back to Europe. They did that in Africa, went over to South America. These people are using gold to worship gods. That's the gold. Let's go and use it to worship our own God. And they use it to finance whatever they're financing and build their cathedrals. So at this point, the plot for Africa is missing, and the plot for South America is missing, for pre-colonial South America. If they were here, you would see that right here, what's happening is a wealth transfer from these areas to Europe. Okay? Now, at this point, slavery is starting. It picks up. Now, what people tend to miss is that slavery, or people whom they call slaves, were not laborers. These people had expertise. It turns out that Africa, our area of Africa, West Africa, Africa in general, but some areas in Nigeria were processing steel, not iron, but steel. Maybe 4,000 years, 1,000+ years before the Europeans started, or people in the Middle East started processing iron at all. And these people knew how to grow rice and process it and market it. They knew how to grow cotton. They knew how to make dyes. These were the industries that put America on the map and put Europe on the map. But their labor and their expertise was carted off in slave ships for which they were not paid, and the countries from which they came were not paid. And they disrupted the growth of those countries. So when you look at the dynamic of what's going on here, where Europe is going up, and again here where Europe is going up again, and here where the US is rising, is because the dark black continent is missing. If you were to plot it here, you'd see what happened to the wealth in that continent. Likewise, the Aztecs and the Maya and so forth are missing. Now, in the case of India as well, same thing happened here. And the Chinese, when the British forced the Chinese to essentially let them deal drugs in China. And so the East Asian economies were grossly impacted by the West. While they're going up, those are coming down. And of course, with the world wars, Europe starts declining, US is rising up to the end of the Second War. So if you were to put everybody here, you'll find out why these steep rises occurred. So the question is, did Europe really create wealth over the last 1,000 years? And the answer is not like it's shown on this map. Because there's a colossal amount of wealth transfer. And what we're going to find out in a second is that there was something else going on, that when you account for the value of the people that were carted away in ways aside from dollars and cents. You realize that these people destroyed wealth. Because when you go and you destabilize a nation, Niger is a good example with their uranium and stuff. Nigeria is a pretty good example with their oil well. When you go out there and you destabilize a place, compare Rwanda as it is now with Burundi, or Rwanda as it is now with Rwanda before the Civil War. When you go out there and you destabilize a place, you actually destroy wealth, and you destroy the ability to create wealth. So, did Europe create wealth over the last 1,000 years? Well, maybe not. Maybe what Europe had was wealth transfer in the last, actually, it's not maybe, we know they had wealth transfer in the last 1,000 years. Okay? One of the reasons they knocked over all these, there's the primary reason for the scramble for Africa that's still ongoing, the scramble for assets, for capital assets, and for mineral wealth economy. Okay. Now, the reason they came and basically knocked over the Benin Empire and so forth was because the Empire of Benin was controlling the oil rivers, and they wanted the oil rivers, so they had to get rid of them. And they started out, and they went 1851 Lagos, went through Yoruba land, Ijebu, Egba, and all these places. And they went to Opobo and so forth. And it never occurred to these people to cooperate and provide a unified front. The Yorubas had a standing army of about 200K people when they went up against the Fulanese and so forth. So there were people available to fight from the Ibadan end clear across to Ife, and Ife has a relationship with Benin. In fact, Ife won Benin, that the Oracle had said something about Europeans, about white folks coming in and doing something untoward. But it never occurred to these people to collaborate to block that action. That's one of the weaknesses about team formation that I'm talking about. And we still do it. We still do it. When Niger and Burkina Faso and all these guys had their military coups, our president in Nigeria was talking about action against them. Guys, ECOWAS has 12, 16 nations, whatever number of nations. You can't wage war against 4. You've got to negotiate on these issues and look at the bigger issue that's been addressed. But we don't do that. That teaming thing is big. So Europe probably did not create wealth over the past 1,000 years. They had wealth transfer, not wealth creation. When you look at that figure that I showed you and add the GDP of Africa and South America, which were excluded from the study, you begin to see the reality of what was going on. And when you add the non-financial wealth, or wider view of wealth creation, you see that Europe actually destroyed wealth over the past millennium. Look at what they did in the Congo. People think that the first oil discovered in Nigeria was Oloibiri in 1958. And people believe that because they're too intellectually lazy to go over to Britain and look at the records. Turns out, at the beginning of the century, before the First World War, they had actually found oil in the oil rivers, in Niger Delta. And the initial well that they completed was producing at 2,000 barrels a day. Now, if the well can produce at 2,000 barrels a day, your question is, and this is before the First World War, so certainly it wasn't 1958. If it's producing at 2,000 barrels a day, where are they putting the 2,000 barrels? So you know there were details of wealth stripping, of stuff that's going on. That's just not in our consciousness, and we're too intellectually lazy to go find out and tell ourselves the truth. And that has to change in your generation. The stories that are told to you to discourage you and to make you feel less, the stories have to change. I'll give you a simple example. Talking about palm oil and Benin and all this stuff. So, 1897, there's a quote-unquote punitive expedition. Well, until you find out that way before that, somebody they had these trading companies that were chartered by the king, had floated the idea of sacking Benin and using the curios, that's all the stuff that's now in the museums, taking it from the Abbas Palace, selling it, making money with it to finance the invasion. That had been floated way before. The other issue is when they when they wrote the story of what happened when they sacked Benin, they said as they went through the place, the Europeans said this, that there were dead bodies around that have been used for sacrifices and stuff. They were just lying around the whole place. Of course, these people are, vicious, primitive people. Well, of course, everybody knows Benin wasn't primitive because for 400 years they've been saying that. So that was a hard sell. So they concentrated on the human sacrifice angle. Until you find out. But if you go and you dig, you find out that these people rolled up some warships on the river, on the Benin River, within shooting distance of the town, of the city, and they started shelling it. You know what happens to a city when you shell from big guns and warships? And Benin was a tightly populated city. Imagine going to Makoko or any tightly populated area of Lagos or anywhere you live and shelling it with naval guns. Naval guns are not precise. They don't knock down building 15 and leave building 16. They just land anywhere. So there's a massacre because these people came in on their shell because they were killing people. They were killing human beings that they thought were subhuman. And of course, because this was war, people ran away. That's what people tend to do. That's what they did in Europe during the Second World War. That's what they did in Ukraine when Russia came in. They ran away. Okay, so if the people are shelling, they kill 10 of your neighbors, they blow them apart, legs here, heads there, stomach here, and so forth. You don't have the time to bury them when you run. So they murder people, they come in, and they tell a lie to cover it up. And of course, because they already think you're subhuman, everybody in their country buys that lie. And we at home are so intellectually lazy that over the intervening 100 years, nobody went and conducted surveys to try and find pieces of the shells that came in and exploded. They're not made of steel. Even if they're made of steel, there'll be pieces of it lying around. So you can track the trajectories. You can back calculate the trajectories of the shells that were coming in, and then you can calculate the impact and the number of people who might have been killed by the shelling, by the attack in the city, which was indiscriminate. So that's bad on their end and bad on our end because we don't tell our own story. What's worse is that the foot soldiers that were used by the British to come in were people who became Nigerians. Essentially, they were locals. Those are the people that were used to take over the place. So this business of teaming and finding out what's in your best interest, you have to start from there. There's selling off your neighbors as slaves, helping some outsider basically oppress your neighbors, all that kind of stuff. That's got to go. So when you add the non-financial wealth Well, this is the text in red. For a wider view of wealth creation, Europe actually destroyed wealth over the past millennium, from destabilization of places to the theft of skills and to the destruction of human dignity. And you add all those kinds of things, you find out that these people did not create wealth at all. Okay, next. This issue of moral clarity. The reason for Europe not creating wealth net in this period is exactly because there's no moral clarity in what they were doing. They were not guided by the kind of morality that they claim. So when you're going out there to make money to do things, you've got to be clear about doing the right thing. What were they involved in? Slavery, capturing people, kids. What happens to grandma and grandpa when you take the people supporting them? They're dead. They're not going to take those as slaves. You just leave them. They can die in the village. And you destabilize the village, you sow distrust. They have the doctrine of discovery and doctrine of conquest. Anything we can grab is our own. When they went to South America, when they landed in the Caribbean, they would line people up, hang them, and then light a fire under them and burn them up in the name, supposedly, of civilizing them or leading them to the correct God. I'm sure Jesus didn't send them on that mission. Massacre. They intentionally basically gave disease to people to kill them off so they could take the land and the wealth. So that moral clarity was absent. What happened in DRC? The king of Belgium basically told himself DRC became his own belonging. If you didn't produce rubber or whatever it is at the speed you wanted, whether you were a child or not, they cut off your hands, that kind of thing. What happened with Niger, with France, and the uranium, we all know it's been in the news. The Bengal famine in India, millions of people died. It wasn't because they were not producing food, it was because the food they were producing was being commandeered by the British for their own use in Britain. And the Indians, who were supposedly subhuman, basically starved to death. Production of sugar, which was a big item back then, African know-how. Except you didn't pay the Africans, and you basically took the productive demographics, the young people who know how to do this, took them away. So young people and budding up entrepreneurs like you people should be taught that moral clarity and the greater good of the community is integral to wealth creation and to multi-generational wealth maintenance. You've got to do the right thing. There's no shortcut. If you go out there, you step on people, you loot and so forth, go ask Judas. You know, you got that money, but you know what happened to him. But Judas self is it's not even the worst example. Okay, now let's address the issue of foundational myths. Every society has foundational myths to try and promote itself and try and highlight what it feels are the most cogent and the most attractive parts of its own beliefs and how it does. In the West, the myth is that people only do what's in their interest. The implication being that individual interests can be exclusive. In other words, Joe can do what's in his interest, even if it harms me and everybody else that's listening right now. Budding entrepreneurs like you people should be introduced to the tragedy of the commons in game theory. Game theory is an area of mathematics. And we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about the tragedy of the commons. Tragedy of the commons, you have a common asset. Say you have a field. Oh, it's happening in Nigeria right now, actually, with the herdsmen. You have a field of grass, and everybody can use that field. Tragedy of the commons, that's called the commons. Now, the tragedy of the commons is that they feel that everybody will try and grab as much as possible for himself. And by so doing, you injure everybody, including yourself. Okay, now, people and budding entrepreneurs should be introduced to and grounded in the concept that the greater good is in their individual best interest. That is a quintessentially African way to look at it. Ubuntu. The greater good is in your individual best interest. It's not that the society derives its definition from your individual interest or its validity from your individual interest. No, it's that you derive your validation from the greater good and the joint interest of the community. That's what gives you validity. That's the African way of looking at things. I feel that's the right way. And this makes moral clarity a practical imperative for multi-generational wealth maintenance. You gotta think what's best for everybody. You grab money and go and store it in London. How does that help? And then you live in a society where there's no power and the gutter smells. How's that helping you or your children? So that's a key thing. Now, the village, everybody knew that you didn't go and poop on the way to the farm because it will wind up in the river and it's not good for anybody. So this idea of the greater good, of greater community good, is inbuilt in our foundational myth as contrary to the ideas in the West, and I feel we have a better one. Okay, West versus African, the foundational myth. The tragedy of the commons describes a situation where individually rational decisions by users of a shared resource, like a pasture, lead to an outcome that's detrimental to all. The problem here, the problem phrase here, is individually rational. In the West, people feel that if we all have cows and, okay, let me read the next section. This happens because each individual prioritizes their own immediate gain, for example, grazing more sheep, without considering the long-term impact on the resource, ultimately depleting it for everyone. Now, the problem here is that for Africans, and for Asians as well, actually, such conduct is not rational. In the West, such conduct is individually rational. But if you're only prioritizing your own immediate gain, we don't think it's rational. So if you go and grab oil money, you grab money that's supposed to be used for pension, and you steal it and go and buy a mansion in London, and you store the rest in Bank of America. My friend, that may prioritize your own immediate gain, but certainly not rational. Not in any sense. Not for us. So this business of rationality, meaning exclusivity of your interest relative to others, is a Western view, and it's antithetical to the African view. And our view is what is relevant to what your generation is trying to do, which is to get the continent on its feet. So we realize and teach that the greater good is in the individual best interest of all actors, which makes moral clarity a practical imperative. So we're not just talking the way that the priest will get up on Sunday and preach moral clarity. We're saying this is a practical imperative. If you collaborate to look at the greater good, then everybody is better off, and that's practical. Okay, so preaching that you should love your neighbor like yourself gets to be abstract. What does that mean? But when you start looking at your group of people as inseparable from yourself, then you can see the meaning of loving your neighbor as yourself in a practical way, including when you're trying to create wealth. Okay. So when you move forward, I would say again, don't forget those lessons, learn to prepare, learn to execute, and of course, pay it forward. And the call to action is to dare to make a difference. You must have moral clarity. You've got to dream, but to dare to dream, you have to work hard, you have to step out and dare to do it. You have to be diligent, form those teams, don't think you're going to do it by yourself. Dare to ask questions and find the truth and act on it. Dare to find solutions and, of course, act on those solutions. And then pay it forward, help other people, and show gratitude. So thanks. That's it. Oh, lots more people have showed up. Okay, that's it. Thanks for having me, and good luck to
Thank you
everyone.
very much, Dr. Clem. Mr. Dennis, you're moderating, so I believe, Mr. Dennis, I don't know if we can take a question or two.
Okay.
You've taken us through. If I don't know if it's a philosophical journey, but I feel that the knowledge about our roots as Africans is very important to the development that we seek for the future. And currently, like I know, artificial intelligence and different modes of survival within this generation is taking root. It's taking a lot of root, and it almost appears that the cheese is moving. There's this book I read by Dr. Spencer, so Who Moved My Cheese, and it appears that we're not even prepared for what is coming, in a technological sense, when we're looking at what's really happening within the AI space, for example, on a global scale. Africa has not risen to that table to be able to air its own view. And on a large scale, if you take a census of even persons on this group, if people are made to decide to remain in Africa or do we relocate abroad, you would still find that a whole lot more people believe that a better life might not be possible in Africa based on the leadership crisis that we face. So for those of us who currently are still in the country and who are believing in a Nigeria that would work in the interest of everyone, what are really the benefits, or what are we not looking at? What should we look at for us to have that confidence in that decision? Because for one, when I talk to, sometimes my wife and I would just talk and she's like, what made you come back to Nigeria? What was it you were looking for in Nigeria that you couldn't find in the UK or in Europe that made you come back to Nigeria? And are you better off now, 12 to 14 years after you made that decision, compared to maybe some of your colleagues who you left back in Europe and America and all of that? And sometimes when I look at the dynamics of the Naira, you can only have as much Naira, but when you are dealing on a global economy, and you're looking at 1,700 or 1,600 Naira to a dollar, how can we compete? How can we compete as Africans? Because I looked at all those graphs, Africa was missing. I looked at the Malaysian graph, a lot of things that happened within the African continent. Where is our competitiveness, and how can we derive that competitiveness to be able to play on a global scale and have our records imputed in global data?
Well, the number one thing is to concentrate on the local story. I remember when China was starting out, in the as far back as the 80s. And one of my friends from undergrad, Chinese American girl, he used to run Avon. So she went to Andrea Young, and she went to China, and she wrote this article in the Princeton Alumni Weekly. Everybody was thinking China is, because they're moving industry to China and stuff. And she came back and said, you know what? China is a domestic story. Because China's got this huge internal market that they can produce into, they can use it to basically improve whatever it is they're producing and then get up to global standards. And also, they don't need to necessarily protect the producers. At that point, how many Chinese could afford to buy American things anyway? But by producing to the local market, the local producers will get on their feet. And the government made it a point to make things, finance and so forth, available. And they had a plan. Now, we don't have a government that has a plan. So we have to do something different. Now, but the first thing is the local market. I remember when I was in Abuja, I was discussing with people from ISAN, incidentally. Now, look, why don't you, Abuja needs food. Edo State produces tons of, I know that for a fact, because not only was I studying that, but when I was growing up, my mother and her two sisters-in-law, my father's sister and my uncle's wife, were in the Gary business, amongst other things. The women in the village in Edo State will farm cassava, produce Gary, put it on a truck by this guy, Ahima, who was from the village and had a trucking fleet. And then that guy would take it to Lagos. My mother would market it. So these women have the supply chain down. Why can't we do that? And to farm, it doesn't take so many dollars if you have friends or family out here to send them to do it. And then I found out that there were all these herdsmen making it impossible to go to the farm. So there are issues like that that need to be dealt with locally. But the initial focus has to be that local. Nigeria has a colossal amount of demand. We're short over 2 million tons of rice. We're importing junk rice from Thailand and places. That's putting pressure on our farming and putting pressure on the Naira. Because what happens, these people have, they have a store, reserves of rice, for example, and they rotate it. So if it gets too old, they can get rid of it, get new supply, so they don't have moldy rice. Now, if they have to rotate, they don't have to wait for it to be moldy. They just get past the station age and rotate it out. When they rotate it out, A, they lose the value. So if it's 1 ton, it's so many dollars per ton. And number two, you don't just dump it in the street. You have to do something to actually get rid of it. And that something costs money. So the cost of rotation is, call it X, let's call it 10. Now, if you show up as a Nigerian, quote unquote, businessman or politician, and you say, let me go and buy that Thai rice, and I will just flood the market anyhow. The Thais will be very happy to give it to you at zero cost. Why? Because they don't have to spend 10 to get rid of it. And not only that, they're quite happy to ship it to you. Supposing they ship it to you, they cut a deal with you and say, hey, bros, if you have to grow rice or buy it legit, it's 100. But we'll give you this one at, 50. And the Nigerian businessman is thinking, what? And they say, tell you what, we'll even ship it to you yourself. Don't worry about shipping. Give us the money afterwards. So you give them 50. Now they've got 50 in Naira. But what they need to do, so they're ahead already. The shipping costs them what, 3, and putting the thing on the ship costs them maybe another 3. So all they have to do is take the 50 that you give them and convert it to 6, and they're good. What do you think that's going to do to your currency? It's going to put pressure on your currency because they're not looking to get 50 out of what you give them. They're looking to get 6. So they will dump it so long as they can get better than 6. So not only does it put pressure on your production of rice, it puts pressure on your currency. And of course, you get this junk that's coming in. So the thing we need to do is internally, we've got to have a green revolution. You first have to, you can't design a microchip on an empty stomach. So everybody's got to do that. Okay, now, and that's one of the reasons when my children fledged, when they left home, I came home and said, okay, that's what I'm going to do to put back in. It's renewable energy and agroallied. Except I got sick in the process and had to leave. So the issue of growing cassava, rice, plantain, oil palm, those basic things we eat. We've got tons of land, except we have to approach it systematically like the Malaysians did. They had the same problem. What they did was they had 2 companies. One was Felder, which basically took federal lands and developed it for landless peasants. And Felcra, which took people with small pieces of land, put them together to work together so their production could be economically viable. It takes planning to do. And what they also did was when they had large-scale farms, say if you have 1 million hectares, like we had a deal with Kogi to do 1 million hectares, they would take up to 80% of that and share it out amongst local people. They give them 2 hectares each and say, okay, you're farming this thing. We'll give you seeds. We'll give you inputs. We'll buy the stuff from you. We'll co-own the processing plant, and you make this money and you become upper middle class. So all those people, 100,000 people or more, 200,000 people, families, I should say, that participate in that nuclear satellite system, that's what it's called. They become rich and they become business owners because now they own these farms that are producing year after year. And they also co-own the processing plant with Felder, which is the organization, Dangote organization, whatever. So this is government. Now, the reason you keep Felder in the equation is because they bring the sophistication of management. If you're going to JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs to arrange a deal, taking 2,000 or 200,000 peasant farmers is not the way to go. But if you take an organization like Dangote or Shell or whomever that owns 20% of the land and they're farming it, while these other people own 80%, you've got the sophistication and you've got the production and you've got the wealth creation locally. That's what they did. What we did was more along the Indonesian model. So these days, you have this system where the central bank or whomever can give money to that corporation that's processing, and then they would essentially pay people to farm the land. So the people that are paid to farm the land remain poor, which is not the model you want. The company in the middle could be rich, but the people stay poor. That's not the model you want. The other issue is that our priorities are backwards. So I'm talking globally now. but will come down to what you need to do as a person. If you're a Dangote producing urea in Lagos, I don't know how much more stupid that could be. Why would you add gas to Lagos to produce urea? Number one, we have no food. We have the middle belt, and it's fantastic for food production. Urea is the number one fertilizer we need. We're going to have to use it. So if you're exporting that Dangote urea, you have to go import urea to truck it up to the north or the middle belt to farm. So that is stupid beyond any measure. And then, of course, why would you build a pipeline from Port Harcourt to Lagos to take gas? Process it in Port Harcourt or process it in the middle belt where you need the profit. So we have a thinking, and it's backwards. We're still in this thing. Remember that thing I said about a rational decision, and where for us, unless it's in the common good, it's not rational. The decision to put Dangote refinery in Lagos is not rational, not for the community. Because that pipeline that comes across costs a lot of money. We don't produce an ounce of steel. So we sank a lot of money into that thing to get oil out of the Delta coming across, while the people in Delta are catching B-cell cancers from all the activities. We're policing the place. We're taking it out of production for all kinds of things. 100,000 hectares of land in River State of Bayelsa. You're looking at over $7 million. It's 7,000 times 100,000. That's $700 million a year in oil palm for 100,000 hectares. So we're doing the wrong thing. And that's because we're not thinking of it as a system. The people in Lagos are thinking of their own pockets in Lagos, and that's the wrong thing to do. So from the top, we're doing the wrong thing. And the other thing is that when you have this setup like Malaysia has, then when you take that big piece of land with all those people farming their little pieces that are now entrepreneurs going forward and can hand wealth to the next generation, because they don't drive to work, they're living on the farms. Just provide them with schools, provide them with healthcare, and most of the money they make winds up in the bank. They're not spending. And that's how you finance your industrial development bank and your agricultural bank. So instead of charging people 20, 30% interest to borrow, this becomes equity and very low interest rates. We're not doing that. So we have all our solutions there, but we refuse to use them. So the thing to do, get your little team together, find an issue that's addressable. You know, food is always a great one. It doesn't look sophisticated, it doesn't look sexy, but you know what? It's permanent. You don't have to go up against Dangote. Dangote is not gonna, we're short of food, we're importing food. We're importing all kinds of stuff. So, you know, and then when it comes to AI, the problem we're having with AI right now is because we have latency in our, well, first of all, we have no data centers. There's one that's opening up in Lagos that would help. And if we can get our work ethic to be correct, we can build, Nigerians are very creative. They can write all kinds of stuff, create all kinds of stuff to sell to the general, to the international community. I'm doing a project right now where a lot of my engineering is getting done in India. And some of the engineering gets done in the United States. And mostly it's AI. And I thought about having my AI done in Nigeria, but I got discouraged right away because I just don't trust that I wouldn't get stolen, period. Because when I came home in 2007, I stayed home 2007, 2017. You wouldn't believe the number of business plans that I saw and details that I saw when I went to talk to banks about financing the thing I was doing. Other people's plans, other people's stuff. And the first time I came, when I got on ground, we were going to manufacture solar cells and panels in Lagos Free Trade Zone. And I got run around the place. I got dribbled left and right. That one. They gave us some land. And they turned around and said, oh, we need $100 million. That's what I said to them. If I have $100 million of cash, I wouldn't give it to you for Lagos land. Am I crazy? If I had $100 million cash, I'd go buy Apple stocks and just go chill because I know where Apple's going. But that's not going to help Nigeria if I did that. And it's not helping Nigeria. So what you're going to have to do on your end is just basic stuff. Just look at what the need is. And you have contacts out here that you could brainstorm with on how to satisfy some of those needs. In the case of AI and programming, you have the Nigerians out here. I ran into this lady at Google because we're doing a program with Google and with Amazon to write African language models, okay, to teach AI how to speak Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, and Pidgin properly, so we can use it on our platform. And Amazon wants to do it with us, Google wants to do it with us. And the girl from Google is this Yoruba girl that's like almost 30. The Nigerians everywhere. So when it comes to leveraging the diaspora, we're bad at that. And you're going to have to bypass Auntie Abike. Because Abike she doesn't speak our language. I'm a diaspora person. There's nothing she does for me when it comes to doing stuff, going towards home. I'd never approach her because she doesn't speak our language. And what the person that needs to represent diaspora in Nigerian undertakings has to reside here, and they've got to. You can't have the same person for 30 years. She's been there since Obasanjo was there. So, but you don't have to go through it. You can bypass her. You can basically get people here, like you, Joe. You've got a brother out here in Canada. Get people out here, and then think, okay, what is it that we can do, and stuff, and then offer services that way. But at home, just look at the most basic things because you're going to be short of capital. You have churches, churches have a lot of cash on hand. Instead of building stadiums that people will come and worship in and not use for matches for 7 days or building. Guys, let's build the wealth creation so that those people can have a life and the children can have a life. So I would present to your pastor, and look, if we do this, this is what can come out of it, and it's better for the community, and it's also good for the church. It's not like the money they put out there will vanish. And the church should not loan you money at 30%. No, they should come in as equity partners, and it can't be controlled by the pastor because he has he has to have a fiduciary responsibility that he doesn't. He has to honor a fiduciary responsibility, and he's not in a position to do so. He doesn't have the expertise. So it's this structural things you have to work around. If you have a difficult time convincing people with the power and the resources, get a small group together and then figure out how to contribute effort and capital with each other. That's when I was talking about Isusu and the Muslim thing and Grameen and so forth. That's what people have done. So if it's a group of you and you're working together and sharing risk and sharing capital input, you can work at it and get much better results. Okay, so that's there's no magic at this, but fortunately, your generation, you can see that the people at the top have them. So there's no point waiting for them to do something. But with the number of people I see here, there's no reason you can't get something.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clem.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the wisdom. There are certain aspects of the program that we will just want you to observe. I know that it's still quite early in the morning at your end. So I'll be handing over to Mr. Dennis so that he can invite some of the mentees to just share their experience during the program.
Okay. Before he does that, let me just say, Joe, I'm going to send you, I want all of you to test the AI healthcare platform that we're developing. We're piloting it in Nigeria right now, and we'll pilot it till May 10th. And then we're going to do a pilot in India. We've been invited to come and pilot in India. And there are about 20 apps on the platform. There's a self-help end, and there's an end where you consult with our 30 doctors, any of our 30 doctors, and we'll give you a little stipend of 5,000 to just test 2 of the apps. But we need your input. We're going to get it ready for circulation and production in Q3. Until now and then, we want to make it able to speak to you about problems. But so I'll send the flyer to Joe, and he can circulate it. But I need every one of you to test that platform. What we're trying to do with the platform is we want to cut healthcare costs by about 50%. We want to cut drug costs by about 90%. We're going to put AI in traditional African medicine, and we're going to pipe in doctors from anywhere on the planet because we have a universal translator on the platform. And then pretty much, okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Clark.
Okay.
Dennis, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clements. That was a very, very wonderful discourse from you. Thank you also, Mr. Joe, who happens to be the co-founder of the Jiipcc Mentorship and Internship Program, for a very, very brilliant introduction of Dr. Clem. You know, it has been a very, very intensive and interactive discussion so far from where we started to where we are right now. And right now, what we want to do is we want to give the opportunity and the floor to our mentees who have gone through the 7 weeks program, right, in different courses under different fields, to come and share their experience with us. You are going to tell us your name. Because of how far spent we are on time, we'll be taking just a few out of the mentees, right? We'll be calling at random. Please, when you are called up, please kindly turn on your video so that we can see you. You let us know your name, right? Your name, the course you took, and you know how you intend applying the knowledge you have gained in the future. To waste any time, we'll be doing this at random. So, okay, I think I want to start with more praise. Praise, are you with us? Hello, Praise, we can hear you. You're muted.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Praise.
Good afternoon, Dr. Clement. Good afternoon, Joseph Obo. My name is Praise. I registered IP class, and it has been an awesome. I don't know how. I'm an.
Okay,
So I don't really have.
Sorry, Praise. Can you? Yes, your speaker echoing. So please, yeah, you can just kindly unmute and try again.
Can you hear me now?
It's best.
Can I start all over?
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I guess it was my echo. So come again. My name is Mo. I was privileged. I would say it's a privilege because
sorry, I think she's using 2 devices. What's it doing?
Oh, all right. Praise, you're on two devices. Please, can you kindly just use one? Right.
Praise, it looks like your village people are messing with the microphone.
All right. So, okay, not to waste any time. Right. While we wait for Chris to make adjustments to our mic, what we'll be doing is that we'll be taking another mentee. All right. So let's go with Mr. Okay, or let's go with Fortune. Fortune, if you're with us, please can you kindly unmute? Right, tell us the course you offered, your name, the course you offered, and what you intend doing with the knowledge you have gained from the program. Fortune, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening. Sorry, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon. We can hear you. Please, can you kindly turn on your video if that would be possible?
All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Sorry, sir, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
All right. Okay. I'm Nikki Fortune, and I was privileged to be a mentee for the data protection and intellectual property course, and it's been amazing. I want to sincerely appreciate the organization for giving me such an opportunity to gain expert knowledge in this area, because it's been something I've been planning to do since last year, and I was privileged to actually get it done even before the second quarter of this year. So with the knowledge I've garnered from this course, the knowledge is there, and in fact, to round up the whole thing, if there's anything I want to do with the practical knowledge I've gotten, it's actually to improve upon it, because I'm a student for now. So it's for me to improve upon what I have learned, and then have to apply it into practical scenarios. For data protection, I'm getting better with understanding data privacy policies and how to draft them. I'm still working on that. And then for intellectual property, I'm getting to understand also how to protect intellectual property for creative startups and so it's not like applying just a practical touch, giving that practical, bringing my ideas into reality. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you very much, Fortune, for that wonderful, for helping us just highlight that quickly. We really, really appreciate you taking part of the program and also being consistent with the process. Like I said, it was 7 weeks. It has been 7 weeks of a very intensive mentorship and internship program. I'm sure, working on presentation, getting to work with different other mentees must have been also thrilling for the mentees. Sometimes there's the issues of organizations trying to put your heads together, having one party more contributing more, right, than the other. So please, we also want you, if it's possible, to also share some of those experiences, right, where you talk about, but in a few minutes, where you talk about some of also the challenges you faced during the program, because I'm sure there are quite a few of us that had some minor challenges. So please, you can also discuss those experiences. So going on to the next person, like I said, we'll be taking just, a few, right, so that we get to close the session on time. I would like to go with Tavimbas. Okay, Tavimbas, if I'm getting your name correct. Yeah, please, you can kindly unmute, right, and then turn on your video so that we can see you. Tavimbas, are you with us? Okay. All right. It seems she might not be hearing us. So Joy Ngozi. Joy, are you with us? Sorry, can we have like our videos turned on? Please, for the mentees down the call, please turn on your videos. Right, turn on your videos. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Fortune. All right, so that we can identify those who are currently with us, so that when we are picking or we are calling people to speak, we can do that comfortably. So thank you, everyone. So not to waste any further time, Mr. Paul, right, if you're with us, you can go ahead, tell us your name, share with us some of the little experience you had and what you plan doing with the knowledge and also with the course that you took part of.
Thank you very much, Sir Williams. Good afternoon. Afternoon to my fellow mentees on the call. Good afternoon to our mentor today, Mr. Okon. Thank you very much for the lesson. Personally, I learned so much today about our stories that have been retold wrongly. Thank you so much for teaching us the right stories. Yes, to begin with, my name is Paul Aye. I am a student at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. I'm in 300 level. So yes, the course I chose was intellectual property law, and my experiences were really rich. Before now, I did not really know how to write articles, but because I was paired with someone who is well versed in writing, he actually taught me how to write most of these things. So every week we'll be given tasks, and he would help me, tell me how to go about citations and the nuances involved in writing articles. Yeah. Secondly, another thing I experienced was, sometimes my time management was a big thing for me because I am involved in a lot of activities in school, and so most times I have deadlines to meet, say assignments or preparing for tests, or writing exams, and then I even hear that okay, we'll have a call or we'll have another lesson coming up in the evening. These were some of the challenges I faced. But overall, I was able to surmount most of the challenges. I attended most of the classes, and I've learned so much. How do I want to implement this knowledge? Well, as a student, I belong to a club called Intellectual Property Club here in EBU. And I think for now that I am not doing anything, work with the students, teach them some of these things of IP, of how to protect our intellectual property, tell them about communal and geographical indication and all of those things. To everybody who contributed to this program.
Okay, so thank you, Paul. You were breaking up towards the end, but thank you still for sharing. I think we got most of what you said. So thank you very much, Paul. I think I would like to go next to Pina. Pina, if you're with us, please, can you kindly unmute and then just tell us your name, your course, the courses that you took, and then your experience so far with the program and what you intend doing with the knowledge.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, dear organizers of JIIPP and PCC Academy. Good evening to our mentor today, Mr. Clement Oko. I really gathered so much knowledge on everything you shared. I mean, just like the speaker who just left said, our story are really not told to us in truth. Rather, they were told to us in segments, and these stories are shared to us by not Africans of ours, but people outside sharing the stories to us. And in a bit to doing that, they share them in bits to us. Thank you so much for the knowledge you imparted today. My 7 weeks in JIPCC Academy has really been an insightful one, and I've learned a lot under the intellectual property law. I've also learned so much on the artificial intelligence, so much also on medical health law, and also on entertainment law, which is more of my area of specialty, and on the ADR because I've been able to implement the ADR. So before now, when I join my boss to a meeting with clients at the office, because usually when a client comes to give us a brief, we're meant to listen to the client completely. I never had the skills of listening completely. Like, I may want to interrupt the client, well, maybe to get clarity on what the client is saying. But the ADR session taught me that as a good mediator and an arbitrator, you're meant to be a good listener. I was able to implement that. I was able to control myself when trying to adjudicate matters between two parties and not taking sides. I mean, that's what the ADR this in alternative dispute resolution really taught me from this academy. Also on intellectual property, I never attended the university where we were taught intellectual property. I think from the few mentees who have spoken so far, my colleagues, they are really privileged. I mean, I never came from a school who even thought that intellectual property was a course. And so when I got out of the Nigerian law school and I was called to bar, I would hear someone who is a musician telling me, Fina, what is your take on this? And I'm like, I'm blank. Oh, I never learned this. And as God will have it, I was just surfing my LinkedIn one day, and then I came across the JIIPCC. I wasn't even sure I was going to be sent a mail, but I just applied, and the next few weeks I got a mail. Oh, we are starting this program on so and so. I had to enroll. Thank you so much, dear JIPPC. I don't know what this would do, but it has done so much for me so far. And on the artificial intelligence, I'd learned so much, especially Mrs. Isi Owumi. She actually taught, there was something she said. She said, most times it's not that people we get to hear people. When I applied for a scholarship, they told us that we're not supposed to write using AI. But she said no. AI is not like you're copying and pasting, but that there are a lot of um, advantages to AI. It helps you do the research, and in your own, when you're done reading that, you put it and implement it in your way. And so I've been able to know how to use AI henceforth from the day she actually spoke to me about. And on the medical health law, I've implemented that particular one. Okay, so a few weeks ago, in fact, particularly on the 7th day of this month, yeah, a client actually reported a medical doctor who misbehaved with his daughter while, carrying out some medical treatment on the daughter. And I had to let the doctor understand that even though these patients do not know their rights, we lawyers know that patients have got what we call their rights and obligations as patients, the same way the doctors have got their rights and obligations as medical health practitioners. So if I would not have known about this, but not for the JIPPC Academy, and I'm so grateful. So what I intend to do with this is that I've already opened a YouTube channel where I want to begin to have a lot of podcasts. Yeah, more like a podcast, but this academy that I've taken so far would be a knowledge impact and a driven drive to help me achieving my podcast session on legal terms and other legal sessions I'm going to be having. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Yes, thank you so much, Fina. Such a wonderful experience, such a wonderful share from you. We really do appreciate we really do appreciate, your take and how well the program has helped you so far. So we'll still be taking
If I might add something before you go on. It's
all right.
interesting that ADR is referred to as alternative dispute resolution. Anybody who grew up in an African society knows that that's not the alternative. That is the foundational dispute resolution before you go to court. I mean, the courts, even before the Europeans showed up, you could always go to Igwe's palace or whatever. But it's always the family first, the village next. They have a deal in the Delta. And then other aspects. And I remember one thing my father used to do. My dad died in 2008. And when you went to report somebody and said, somebody did this, it did this, it did this, the first question my dad would always ask you is, and what did you do? That got you, that was like putting the brakes on an aircraft. And you have to think about cause and effect. And that's critical in dispute resolution. You have to be neutral. Everybody has to see there's more than one side to the story. So just as a note to finish, when you do start your podcasts, tap into what exists so people can relate to this stuff. And it's concrete, it's very, very real. And it's not just, it's the formal ones. I have a whole bunch of lawyer friends. And in my family, you're either a lawyer or you're a scientist. But anyway, okay, that's it. Go ahead.
All right.
Noted, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I've noted that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Moving forward, I think we'll be taking, just 3 more mentees. We'll take 3 more mentees application. Then we'll take a closing remark from Mr. Joseph, if that will be possible, sir, if you are still with us. And then we'll be taking a wrap, or we'll just be calling it a wrap on the program. So the idea of the closing ceremony was to, or is generally to bring you face to face with, some of the mentors you've had, classes with, they telling you, or sharing, or you telling us your story and them encouraging you as you go forward in your journey. That's basically the idea behind the closing ceremony itself. So we'll be taking a few more, I think just 3 more, and then we'll have closing remarks, and then we'll be calling it a wrap. So, Mr. BC, okay, or Mr. Chuka, if that's possible, please, would like to hear from you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm Juan Asuka. I privileged to have endorsed in patent drafting. So currently I was a member of the Nigerian Law School last year. We just had our final exam. So from that time to the release of results just last week, I was undergoing some personal development programs. So I happened to come across JIIPCC on my LinkedIn. And so I've always been an IP enthusiast, but I endorsed in the patent drafting because I've always been curious about patents and how to draft them and the technicalities of patents. So I'm really grateful to the mentors over the past 7 weeks, especially Mrs. Shukurat, Amosa Shukurat, Mr. Abasid, and the host and the co-founder of JIIPCC for the knowledge that I've been impacted with. So moving on, there's still some disparity in when you learn in theory and in actual practice. So what I basically learned over this course of these 7 weeks was more like an above surface knowledge on the on patent drafting. So because before I had some friends who are mostly into tech, they have some of their ideas basically that they brought to me when I was still in university then. Like the previous speaker said, we didn't really have a course basically that surrounds patents and IP. What we normally do then was just commercial law, and jurisprudence, thoughts and all of that. So IP was not really a foundational course then in university. So when I was asked about my take on his ideas, and how to patent them, I was really, like a novice then. So I referred it to someone else, telling him that I didn't really know much about it as of then. But now, at least, now that I have some foundational knowledge on patent drafting, especially on the context of patents, regional and filing routes, and contents of a patent. I believe now that at least if I'm approached by someone, I can give him some basic advice on how to go about it. But because I'm yet to be caught to the bar yet, so in practice, I may not really draft it, but at least now I have a good, handful knowledge that I can give out to potential clients about how they can go about their drafting, whether they're drafting regionally, they're drafting in Nigeria or like globally, and how to go about it and what their pattern must entail, the dependent claim and all of that. So I want to really thank this program because there's a whole lot more that I really, really equipped with. And we also go further to still engage in more learning. So to equip myself more on patents and patent drafting and all of that. So I'm really grateful, honestly. It's been a privilege to have been here for the past 7 weeks, and I'm grateful to the mentors and to the founder of JIIPCC Academy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chuka. A very, very wonderful discourse or share from you. We are happy that you had a fantastic experience over the course of this last 7 weeks. All right, so, okay, I saw Vestra. All right, please, if you're with us, we will also want to hear from you. Vestra, are you with us?
I'm here.
Yes, all right. So please, we would like for you to tell us your name, your course, some of the experiences you've had and what you plan to do with the knowledge you've gained.
Okay, my name is Vestra Obakolo, and I took the energy industry course. When I saw the flyer, I came across the flyer on LinkedIn. I was really interested because particularly the energy industry, I had done oil and gas law in 300 level, and I really wanted to know more about like the energy industry, how I could get into it, and because I was interested in energy law and policy making. So GIIPCC has been like a wonderful experience. Apart from the fact that it sort of stressed me with the deadline, the group activities, the articles, and then juggling all that with final here, but it was still like a wonderful experience. It helped me know how to deliver my articles on time. It helps. I learned a lot, especially like about the energy industry, midstream, the mainstream, downstream, and everything. Basically, the mentors were wonderful. And the CV writing class, most especially, that was really, really amazing because I didn't realize how much AI could be useful in helping us like draft our CVs and resumes and all that. And I think I would recommend the GIIPCC mentorship course to anybody that wants to, whatever in the various areas that we talked about that were handled by the various areas of law that were handled. I would really recommend it because it's not only gives you that foundation into like to based on to in order to go into that field. It also like helps you become useful, yeah, to the society and to your industry, like for the startup classes, the CV writing classes, like everything. I have not seen a more well thought out course, and I really want to commend the organizers, and I want to thank the mentors. It was such a wonderful opportunity to be part of this mentorship program. I want to say a big thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bestra. All right, so we'll be taking the last mentee for today, and then we'll be taking our closing remarks. And Mr. BC, if you're with us, please, we'd also like to just quickly hear from you, if that will be possible in the next 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is BC Akelabi. I'm a young lawyer, and I've always been interested in data privacy, being a new, fairly new innovation in Nigerian law, is cuts across every field of practice. In my practice, I've had to deal with data privacy issues. I had no foundation in it. And one of my colleagues is data privacy expert. I had a conversation with her wanting to learn about data privacy. and she forwarded me the link to the program. It has been very, very insightful. You know, we making the research, writing articles, and learning the practical application of business. It's not just about theory. Very, very important that you know how the things work. So lots of things stood out for me in the classes. But one thing that stood out for me is how as a GP, your responsibilities to the society, to the company you started, and now you have to protect the data rights of these companies. Very, very important. I also learned about the rights of, if you're hosting an event, for example, you have to put a tag there that you'll be capturing people's images. If you capture somebody's image without their consent, then you fly it on air, it could lead to a very big lawsuit. So I learned a lot of things from the data privacy class. I wasn't disappointed. Talking about the challenges, as someone who works in Lagos, the 9 to 5 in Lagos is actually 5 to 9. Having to juggle that, so your commitments every week to attend classes, to write articles, to contribute, to discuss. It's quite challenging, but I was able to overcome that challenge. And going forward, what would I do? Formally, I get data related matters pushed to my table. But right now, I've been equipped with at least foundational knowledge to at least start something, and hopefully, I'll be able to improve on that going forward uh, uh, in my practice. Thank you very much, Jiipcc, for the opportunity. Very grateful.
All right, thank you very much, VC. So I forgot to say, but please, I would like for us to quickly turn on our videos once more, right, so that we can take a quick picture before we take the closing remarks. So please, for those who don't have their videos turned on, let's have that done so that we can take our pictures. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Ipedayo. Thank you, Veshra. All right. All right, please, we're waiting for you, mentees. Thank you so much as you cooperate. Yes, so the final picture time for, this quarter, please let's make it, we want to have everyone in frame, if that will be possible. Thank you. All right. Sorry, 1 minute, I'll soon be done. Okay, so we are done with that. So over to Mr. Joseph, the co-founder of Jiipcc. Please, over to you, sir, for closing remarks as we get to round up with the closing ceremony.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. To me, it's really a great honor and privilege that we started all out with one, and right now we are the closing session for the Jiipcc Mentorship and Internship program. I want to say very big thank you, very thank you, and lots of gratitude to every mentor, every intern, every mentee, every facilitator, every partner who made this program a success. It's because of you that we have this results that we are having in terms of the mentorship program. And I'm also very happy that from all the testimonials that we've had, it's very comforting to also know that the program has been very useful to each and every one of us. I also want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Clement for accepting on very short notice to deliver the keynote address for the closing ceremony. I'm very grateful, and we've learned so much. For me, it was a journey back into history, and I'm very proud of the Nigerian heritage. And I hope that we leave here today daring to believe, daring to take action, daring to do all that we need to do to make sure that our Nigerian story, or better yet, our story is complete. We have a complete story of our journey, and we're able to look forward to the future with our heads held up high. I'm very happy that today's remarks, addressed a lot of issues, and I'm sure that the Nigeria that we all look out for, that seed is actually in each and every one of us to see how we can go make ourselves proud, make our communities proud, and make Nigeria proud. I would also want to add that for the mentees, for the interns that joined in for this session, we all came in eager. We not only learned new skills, we were able to build relationships, we were able to build friendships. I would not be surprised if some of these friendships and relationships and persons that we've met during this program will be able to take the relationship and friendships beyond Zoom. Let's engage, let's collaborate, let's set up companies, let's do one sort of business or the other together. Let's just see how we can add value to the general national appeal and contribute our own quota as well to national development. I would also want to encourage you, that same curiosity that brought you to the Jiipcc Mentorship and Internship Program. My expectation, or the expectation of Jiipcc, is that we take that curiosity to build products, to do things, to not be part of the problem of this country, to not also be part of those who complain, but let's see the challenges that are around us. Let's find local solutions to local problems. And as we continue to do that, I believe that we'll be adding value at every point that we find ourselves. So the Jiipcc Mentorship and Internship Program is purely about building people. I want to encourage us to share the links, let people register for the next quarter. The information will definitely go around. And finally, I want to say a very big thank you to our founder, Juliana Obajima Obo Joseph, amazingly. But I just want to say that because the entire vision for Jiipcc, started from her, and we would not be here today, if she did not heed that call to start this program. A very big thank you to everyone. I wish us all the very best. There's one more thing. What Jiipcc, sometimes we find out that it might require some level of support, maybe with recommendation letters or letters to universities, things like that. We can yeah, I said mentees might require some support, maybe with recommendation letters. We're happy to require support from Jiipcc. So this is just to say thank you, everyone. Do have a wonderful evening. Do have a wonderful month ahead. And please do enjoy your holidays. Thank you very much. God bless you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. In the light of that, we'll be calling it a close on the mentorship program. Further details about your certificates and every other things will be sent to the group today. So, once again, like Mr. Joseph has said, a big thank you. It has been a privilege working with each and every single one of you. I have also learned and benefited from some of the relationships that we have gotten to build with the mentees alongside the mentors. Please do not fail to...
I'm not hearing you. I don't know if it's my network.
Okay. Can anyone else hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. So, sir, I think it's your network, sir. So, just like I was saying, please and just like Mr. Joseph has said, please let's carry this relationship, let's carry this network that we have built, let's carry this knowledge that we have built, and move forward, build ourselves, build the people around us, build the community that we want to see around us, you know. And I trust that the journey from here, it can only get better, right? It can and it will only get better from here. So thank you once again for participating in the Jiipcc Mentorship and Internship Program for the Q1/2 mentorship session of 2025. For those who still want to take part in this program, you can still register, take other courses, and I advise you to, right? You know, there's no knowledge that is wasted. There's no skill acquired that will not be of profit, whether now or later in the future. So please do well to take advantage as much as you can. We look forward to seeing you in other engagements and in other activities. Thank you very much. Do not forget to join our alumni group. We'll be sending all those information to you. You can be a part of our alumni community and also be part of other sub-units that we also provide. Or like I said, all the information will be sent to the group today. So thank you once again. Goodbye and take care, everyone.